Okay, so let's look at number 16. First of all, we're trying to find within a domain of negative 360 degrees and a positive 360 degrees, which if you looked at it like a number line, you could say this is 360, this is negative 360, and here's 0. We're trying to find here, let me go ahead and put open circles since you don't see this equal sign here. So between negative 360 and positive 360, let me show that a little bit better. We're trying to find all the angles or all the coordinates in polar notation that are equivalent to 4 150. So remember, 4 150, if I were to draw it, which I don't have to, but 3, 4, means that we're going to aim at 150 degrees, which is about here, and we're going to go out to 4, where the radius is 4 from the center, and we're going to put a dot. That right here represents this point, which is at 4 150 in polar notation. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to find 3 other pairs that basically would create the same point. Now you can either add or subtract 360 to this and then just leave 4 as is. So you're basically finding the coterminal angle. Now, so I have a choice. I can either add 360 or I can subtract 360. Let's see what we get if we add 360. Notice that we get 510. So 510 is not in this domain that we're trying to find. Like 510 would be more to the right of 360. So we don't want to add 360 on this one. Since we're domain restricted, we want to subtract 360, which we would get a negative 210. Negative 210 is probably about right there. It's in the domain, so it is allowed, and that's one of our answers. Okay? From our notes, the other way we could do this is instead of adding or subtracting 360 to the angle, we could add or subtract 180. Okay? And the other thing that we have to do if we choose to do this 180 is that we're going to have to change the sign of r. So if it was positive, we would change it to a negative. Like this would change to a negative 4 in this case. Whereas this one, it being negative already, would change to a positive 3. Okay? So let's continue with A right here. Okay? So now that we have a negative r, we're going to add, so negative r, these are our 3 answers right here. We're going to add 180 and we're going to subtract 180. So let's go ahead into our calculator and say 150 plus 180 gives us 330. So we'll write that, we'll write that right here. But if we were to subtract, we'd say 150 minus 180, we'd get negative 30, which is what we're going to write here. Now, make sure you put degrees, and sure enough, make sure that you check that these are in fact in the allowable range or domain that we were looking at between negative 360 and 360. So we said negative 210 was here, that worked. 330 would probably be here, that works, and negative 30 would be here, and that works. So sure enough, if you have to do this, by all means do so, or just memorize the rules as far as the other ways and forms that you could show these points. Alright, so we have 3 other points for part B. And the way we did that, we changed this to a positive, and now we're going to add or subtract 180 to this. So let's go to the calculator. Negative 45 plus 180, negative 45 minus 180. So you get a 135 or a negative 225. 135 or a negative 225. And sure enough, that's in this range right here of negative 360 to 360. And then the other one is where the negative 3 stays as is. You're not changing the r. And you're just going to add or subtract 360. Okay, so let's look at that. So negative 45 adding 360 does work. Negative 45 minus 360 is too far to the left. It'd be like negative 405, which would be somewhere like out here to the left of 360. So we want to make sure that we go with that other one that said 315, because that would be somewhere about here, which is good. So 315 degrees and those would be the three that you have for those.